As an ex-Christian, one of the things that I think has been one of the hardest things to deconstruct or walk away or stop believing is just the idea that there is something outside of myself, period. That was one of the hardest things for me, because my indoctrination started so early. It started before, honestly, I think I was even able to speak because my family went to church. And I think this is a common thing amongst Black Americans specifically, those of us that are ancestrally connected to the transatlantic slave trade. Or any form of practices where Christianity was heavily engaged in on a weekly basis. Most Black people grew up in church every Sunday for at least 3 hours of their life. They would spend in a church setting, in a pew chair where you sit as a student in a lecture format that starts with some prayer, incantations, or whatever you want to consider the words, or you're speaking to the invisible, more singing and talking and directing attentions toward the invisible. Then there's the preacher who spends time preaching and instilling fear and trying to connect dots of scriptures that are most of the times very disconnected but have a common theme, stringing them together, standing in front of you, either speaking very charismatically or raining down hellfire in the fire and brimstone type of accusatory finger pointing type of "you're no good, you're a dirty, rotten, stinking scoundrel." And then they wrap it up and put a pretty little bow on it, play some soft music, pull at your heartstrings, maybe allow for some testimony in there in the sermon or maybe prior to, and then a call to action that usually takes place in front of a few people, the congregation, where there is a level of peer pressure included, where you kind of look around and be like, well, I don't want to look like I'm wrong, so let me accept, or they've pulled on your emotions, or whatever the case may be. With all of this being said, as a licensed therapist, I really believe that people that are attempting to deconstruct should do it in a supervised manner, meaning that you're probably going to need a therapist to help you process the anger, the anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder if necessary, because certain types of religions, based on your engagement as well as like how dedicated you were, may also factor into how hard it's going to be for you to stop, as well as learning some terminology, studying out some historical facts. Some people need to study to find a truth or something to tell them that what they have been taught is not true or verifiable. So with all of that being said, I want to help, being that processing religious trauma and deconstructing from religion is not a therapeutic practice. The side effects and diagnosis are, but I would like to just specifically focus on the deconstructing as it pertains to Black Christians. So if that's something you're interested in, chat in the comments. I'm going to be trying to host lives, Zooms, and a bunch of other type of resource centered supports, because I personally do not see how getting into arguments and debates with people that are still holding fast to the faith, I don't see how that's going to help you. As a matter of fact, I know it's not going to help you. So it's only going to make you probably recognize how much anger you have, or it may expose exactly how much indoctrination you have. I'm not really sure, but the arguing back and forth, it only feeds your ego. Especially if you were a scholar before, it's not going to do much more than make you feel like you're smarter than you are. But my question is, if you were truly as smart as you really think you are, how did the indoctrination last as long as it did? That was a question I had to ask myself because of course I'm one of those smart people, except for when indoctrination is involved and I become completely and utterly ignorant and gullible. All right, y'all. Talk to me in the comments. Peace.